John Daly in the charred and gutted city of Le Cap, San Domingo, the West Indies. The native chant you hear is the Assembly. Ever since dawn on this 6th day of May, 1802, the Assembly has been calling San Domingans down from their mountain huts, out of the forests, across the sugarcane fields, calling them to assemble here in the burnt-out public square of Le Cap. The Assembly summons the people to gather for the peace negotiations scheduled between General Toussaint Louverture, Commander-in-Chief of the native armies of San Domingo, and General Charles Leclerc, commander of the French invasion forces sent here by Napoleon Bonaparte, First Consul of France. And in answer to the summons of the Assembly, the people of this tropical, palm-fringed island that Columbus knew as Haiti have been gathering here in families and in groups.
18 to 80. You are there.
The people of San Domingo gather in Le Cap with a cherished dream in their hearts. Can their liberty be won across a conference table? CBS takes you back nearly 147 years to the climactic moment in the struggle between European imperialism and an enslaved people for freedom. All things are as they were then, except for one thing. When CBS is there,
you are there.
You Are There, produced and directed by Robert Louis Cheon, is based on authentic historical fact and quotation. And now,
the charred city of Le Cap and John Daly.
Homeless by the burning of their houses. Some are refugees from the hills, tall, straight, carrying baskets with their meager belongings on their heads or on the backs of scrawny burros. Their faces are stained with tears, tears of desperate anxiety. All of them are fervently hoping that the coming negotiations between General Toussaint and General Leclerc will bring the Negroes of San Domingo the complete and guaranteed abolition of slavery by the peaceful method of discussion and compromise. For 12 years, the San Domingans have been fighting for their freedom. Yesterday, according to military observers, General Toussaint's armies needed but one final thrust to throw the French invaders back into the Caribbean Sea. Suddenly, the French General Leclerc, a brother-in-law of Bonaparte, asked for an armistice. And shortly thereafter, this forthcoming meeting was arranged by General Henri Christophe, Toussaint's lieutenant here in the north of San Domingo. Toussaint is expected momentarily at the commandeered mansion on the public square where the talks will take place. General Christophe, however, has already arrived. He's standing here with me in front of that mansion. General Christophe, why did you agree to this armistice when victory was in your grasp?
We had victory, but we did not have liberty. If we drive Leclerc to the sea, if we drown the French in their own blood, Bonaparte will send more Frenchmen to kill Frenchmen. Remember, monsieur, we too fly the tricolore. We too sing the Marseillaise.
Then you think that General Leclerc is ready to guarantee the freedom of the slaves?
We are not slaves, monsieur. We have our freedom. Our cane fields, they are fertilized by the broken bones of my brothers who won our freedom.
But, General Christophe, you've been fighting all these years for the guarantee of freedom. Do you think that at last the French are ready to guarantee it?
That we must wait to see, monsieur. But if the French are ready, they must recognize our constitution, which forbids slavery.
But Bonaparte has already rejected your constitution.
I know that. But this time we have the hand over him. This time Bonaparte's army is bleeding to death. They have lost 50,000 soldiers, 10,000 sailors to our muskets, and to yellow fever. Their hospitals, they are filled with sick and dying. Every day, 50 corpses are carried out of the hospitals and dropped back into the sea from which they came. This time, Bonaparte must sign our constitution, or we will fight until the last of the French troops are blown down like so many cards in the wind.
Thank you, General Christophe, and I hope the coming talks will indeed end this procession of death. The general walks up the steps of the mansion now. He's a giant of a man, tall and powerful in his gold-braided coat and white-plumed hat. General Christophe spoke feelingly of the long history of death on this island. To many, death did not come easily. It came by torture. Isn't that true, Captain Francois?
Torture indeed, Monsieur Daly. Torture. Torture. That is how the French took my eye.
Captain Edgar Francois is an officer of General Toussaint's staff. He's been assigned to us to act as interpreter for the coming discussions. Now, Captain, why did you lose your eye?
Monsieur Daly, the French, they are very logical. For talking back to a Frenchman, they pluck out one eye. For striking a Frenchman, they bury you up to your neck in sand. They smear sugar on your face, and they let the ants feast upon your head. In this case, the head of my brother. My sister, she was a cook to a French woman, and one day Madame did not like the roast, so she roasted my sister. She ordered her thrown into the oven. Yes, Monsieur Daly. For me, the French have made torture a family affair. And I fight with Toussaint Louverture with all heart.
Captain Francois, General Toussaint's last name of Louverture means overture in English. Why does he use that?
We mean he was the beginning, the opening of the door to freedom. He's also called the Black Moses. The Black Moses who has led his people out of bondage. For me, Toussaint is like Jeanne d'Arc. It's like a Messiah. And it was prophesied that he would come.
What was that prophecy?
It was written by a French priest, Liberates. Nations of Europe, he said, your slaves are not in need of your generosity in order to break the sacrilegious yoke that oppresses them. The Negroes lack but a chief. Where is the great man? He will appear. We have no doubt of it. He will show himself. He will unfurl the sacred standard of liberty. And when General Toussaint read that, he knew that he was the appointed one.
Thank you, Captain Francois. The small group of native singers and drummers here continue to chant and beat out the assembly. Let's listen to it for a while. This is John Daly again. When Toussaint Louverture arrives, we will come back to this square. But now for a report on the French view of the imminent conference, let's go inside the mansion to General Leclerc's headquarters and Don Hollenbeck.
The atmosphere here inside the mansion where the conference will take place is in marked contrast to that which John Daly has been describing outside. There's no tension here, no desperate anxiety. There's no sign of the devastation of war. In this richly decorated marble hall with latticed windows, there's a small group of elegantly dressed men and women, members of General Leclerc's staff and their ladies. They're standing about chatting. Some are dancing a gavotte to the music of a small orchestra. When General Toussaint arrives, there'll be a banquet before the conference begins. General Leclerc is here with us. General Leclerc, sir, this display of luxury seems somewhat more fitted for a festive occasion rather than a sober peace conference. Perhaps it's supposed to dazzle and impress the simple tastes of General Toussaint Louverture.
Not at all, monsieur. Toussaint is a great epicure. He will enjoy this. But no, this is mostly for our ladies. Poor souls, they have had a hard time of it. They expected gaiety when they came to San Domingo. They brought with them their gold dinner plates. And now at last they have a chance to use them. No, besides, this food can be a symbol of the plenty that this island can know if there is peace. We can here be a veritable garden of Eden.
Well, yes, General Leclerc, and some people think this banquet is a sort of celebration of your good fortune.
Our good fortune? How is that?
Well, yesterday your armies were on the verge of defeat, and today your enemies are talking peace.
Defeat, that is absurd. Why, my brother-in-law, Napoleon, the first consul, you know that he is my brother.
I'm aware of that, yes.
He could send me 20, 30, 50,000 troops in the next month. I could go on fighting forever. But no, there's been enough bloodshed. We meant to make an end of this. Napoleon and I. We want only law and order.
Yes, sir, but Toussaint Louverture has said that he had law and order while he was governing the colony peaceably.
While he was governing the law and order, you call that law and order when this colony had suffered civil and foreign war for 12 years. When La Bastille fell in Paris 13 years ago, there were here 30,000 white people, and now, you know, there are less than 10,000. And this is not all. The plantation, the beautiful cultivation, all have been destroyed, dommage.
Yes, all right, General, but all that destruction was the result of the people's struggle against slavery. Are you prepared to guarantee in the name of Bonaparte that slavery will never be restored on this island?
Oh, certainement, monsieur. Of course, I swear before the face of the Supreme Being to respect the liberty of the people of Saint-Domingue.
All right, then, General Leclerc. Why did Bonaparte reject Toussaint Louverture's constitution, which expressly and forever forbids slavery?
Oui, the Constitution. I'm very glad you raised this point. The first consul had said that this Constitution contains many good things, no? But it also contains many bad things, contrary to the dignity and the sovereignty of the French nation. Napoleon feels that certain of these bad laws should be removed.
All right. Can you name some of those bad laws?
I know. Something you must have. Ask Napoleon.
Thank you very much, General Leclerc. The general has strolled over to his 23-year-old bride, Pauline, the sister of Napoleon Bonaparte. He has smilingly invited her to leave the handsome French officer she's dancing with and to join him in the patio to await Toussaint Louverture. The Liberator has still not arrived. Quincy Howe is in our headquarters on the second floor of this mansion. He's heard the interviews with Generals Christophe and Leclerc, and for his analysis of the statements, we'll switch now to him.
Well, now, if General Leclerc and General Christophe really mean what they've just said, the people of this island are going to have peace. General Christophe, speaking for the islanders, declared that Toussaint's forces will make peace if the French guarantee to abolish slavery. General Leclerc, speaking for Bonaparte, has sworn that he'll respect the liberty of the people of San Domingo. But how can Bonaparte make good on that guarantee of his? Never forget that Bonaparte rejected the Constitution that Toussaint offered some time back, and he did it for just one reason. Toussaint's treaty called for free trade between San Domingo and the rest of the world. And, well, that's something that Napoleon just can't permit. 10 years ago, the French did 2/3 of all their overseas trading with this one island of San Domingo. Now the French have lost all that business and all those business profits. Above everything else, Bonaparte must make San Domingo, once again, the economic vassal of France. And he can't do that and give the people of San Domingo real economic freedom, and that, of course, includes freedom from slavery. Now, this raises two interesting questions. Has General Leclerc made a commitment here that Bonaparte, his brother-in-law, and the first consul of France will not honor? That just doesn't seem very likely. Or has Bonaparte suddenly changed his whole nature and stopped building an empire? That's obviously even harder to believe. Just a moment. Toussaint Louverture has arrived. So back to the square of Le Cap and John Daly.
Riding a black charger escorted by dragoons, General Toussaint Louverture has arrived for this critical peace parley. The crack dragoons, about 300 horsemen, their swords drawn, are riding behind the Negro Liberator. In front of General Toussaint are two trumpeters magnificently dressed in red uniforms and wearing silver helmets. The general himself wears a blue jacket with a flowing cape, red cuffs, gold lace, and epaulettes, and a large sword hangs by his side. Of medium height, powerful and wiry, he presents not a graceful but nevertheless a dignified figure. There seems to be an undercurrent of mixed fear and hope among the people here. Young Negro women are now strewing his path with flowers. General Toussaint has reached the headquarters mansion and dismounted, and the company of dragoons halts behind him. Toussaint is walking up the steps as the crowd hails him with cries of "Long live Toussaint!" He has a homely face, a stern, forbidding jaw. The general is alert, his eyes flashing. A man in the crowd has just cried out. I think he shouted, "Death to the whites," and the crowd has taken up. Is that right, Captain Francois?
Yes, Monsieur Daly, that is right.
The general won't like that. His hatred of anyone who introduces the question of color into this revolution for freedom is well known. As a matter of fact, he ordered his own nephew shot for the massacre of some whites. The general has walked quickly to a table on the portico, takes up a jug of water, and turns to face the crowd. He raised his arm, and the crowd falls silent. The crowd stands there very quietly as Toussaint begins to speak. Captain Francois, translate, please.
Et ici un gros eau claire. Vous, les frères noirs, êtes la masse d'eau claire. Je mets un doigt de vin rouge dans cette mer d'eau claire, comme ceci.
General Toussaint has dropped a thimbleful of red wine into the water. He has compared my black brothers to a mass of clear water. And he has asked, "Can you tell me which is which?" We must all live together, he said. From the beginning of the revolution, I have braved all for the cause of liberty. I shall never betray my principles. Furthermore, I am too much a believer in the rights of man to think that there is one color in nature superior to another. I know a man only as a man.
General Toussaint has turned and walked into the mansion, his red cape flowing, epaulettes flashing in the sun. A truly heroic figure. He is followed by his staff. Captain Francois, you'd better go inside and give my colleague a hand. And now into the mansion and back to Don Hollenbeck.
Toussaint Louverture has entered the hall. The guests are applauding him, and Toussaint acknowledges it. He's bowing graciously. Madame Leclerc has moved forward to greet Toussaint. She's curtsied to him. He acknowledges her greeting with a graceful bow. General Leclerc has now come up, and the two generals acknowledge each other. General Leclerc and Toussaint are now escorting Madame Leclerc to the head of the table. They're chatting amiably. Toussaint will sit at Madame Leclerc's right. The guests are taking their places now. The atmosphere seems friendly enough. This is a mixed company of guests, Toussaint's staff officers and the men of General Leclerc's staff and their wives. The guests are all seated now. Madame Leclerc offers General Toussaint a glass of wine, but he takes only water. Now General Leclerc is speaking, and here's Captain Francois to translate.
Nous consoliderons ainsi ensemble les institutions.
General Leclerc has said to General Toussaint that together they will strengthen the institution of universal liberty and happiness. General Toussaint replied, "We are here to arrive at some reasonable terms that will end this war of brothers. I have no further desire than that liberty and equality shall reign in San Domingo."
Laissons nos invités à leur réjouissance et retirons-nous dans mon bureau où nous pourrons discuter les termes de la paix.
General Leclerc has suggested that he and General Toussaint retire to Leclerc's study to discuss the terms of peace. No, we will discuss them here, says General Toussaint. What is your intention with regard to slavery?
Bien sûr, devons l'être suprême de respecter la liberté du peuple de Saint-Domingue.
General Leclerc has sworn to respect the liberty of the people of San Domingo. And Toussaint replies, "Good, I accept everything which is favorable to the people and for the army."
Et maintenant, nous pouvons nous retirer dans votre bureau pour y étudier les détails.
Très bien.
General Toussaint is satisfied. He agreed to retire to Leclerc's study for the details. But Leclerc is asking Toussaint, suppose that the war had continued. Where would he have gotten the arms and munitions if they had not agreed upon a peace? General Toussaint said, "From you, General Leclerc, I would have taken what I needed from your advanced posts."
while General Leclerc, laughing at Toussaint's quick and ready reply, has led the way out of the hall to his study. Madame Leclerc has signaled the orchestra, and it's now playing the air of Louis XIII. This, by the way, is the first time the orchestra's had an opportunity to play since Bonaparte's sister brought it here from Paris 4 months ago. Some of Toussaint's officers have started to accompany their commander-in-chief, but the Liberator stopped them with a wave of his hand. Apparently, he prefers to settle the details of the peace terms alone. The two generals have left the hall now. The banquet has begun. We'll wait here for the return of Generals Leclerc and Toussaint, but the terms of the agreement on the basic terms for peace has already reached the square outside, so back to John Daly.
The people here in the square are wild with joy, and the native singers are beating at their drums and chanting, and the people have taken it up now. It's the chant, the rejoice. People are chanting with them, clapping their hands and dancing in the streets. On their faces is the sign of the relief and joy, the measure of triumph that they feel at this turn of events, at the happy accord which was achieved inside as was brought to you by Don Hollenbeck. And now, for just a moment, let us listen to the rejoice. And that's the rejoice, the San Domingan chant of happiness at the news that the war is ended, that death is ended, that slavery is ended, and that freedom will be guaranteed. Women are weeping for joy, for now they know that their men will return to them, that no more sons and husbands will die. The relief and the joy can be seen on the many faces here. The women particularly feel so earnestly the fact that no longer will their men go off to fight in the hills and on the plains and not come home. And rejoicing here in the streets of Le Cap with the Negroes are many white men. Here is one of them, a former French soldier now in the army of Toussaint Louverture. His name is Lieutenant Maurice Bonneau. Lieutenant Bonneau, why did you, a white man and a Frenchman, fight by the side of the Negro Liberator?
Why? I will tell you why, monsieur. When I first come here, they told me that I was fighting for the principles of the French Revolution. They told me that Toussaint was a traitor to the pay of the aristocrats and the British. But at night, I could hear the Negroes singing the Marseillaise,
And is that what made you change?
It made me think, monsieur. The Marseillaise made me think what this war was all about. And then when I was in the hospital with the Siamese disease, you call it the yellow fever.
Yes.
It was the black man who nursed me back to life. So I think some more, and I ask questions. I find out that there are Negroes who fight on the side of Bonaparte and white Frenchmen who fight for Toussaint. I find out that this is not a war of color, but a revolution for liberty, equality, and fraternity, for the white man and the Negro. That was when I decided, monsieur.
Well, I understand that there were others who changed their allegiance.
This is Quincy Howe in our CBS headquarters. We've switched from the square to bring you an important announcement. General Toussaint Louverture and General Leclerc are at this moment on a French frigate in Le Cap Harbor. Soon after retiring from the banquet hall to discuss peace terms in General Leclerc's study, the two men left the study together. But their departure didn't become known until an aide of Toussaint tried to bring him a message and was told that his commander-in-chief had gone with Leclerc to the frigate. We just don't know what this means, but Ken Roberts is on board the frigate Arrow, and he's ready to report, so over to Ken Roberts.
Toussaint Louverture is a prisoner of Bonaparte. He has been arrested by General Leclerc. He did not come here voluntarily. When General Toussaint left the banquet hall of the Cap, he was taken secretly by a detachment of French grenadiers with fixed bayonets. General Leclerc himself is here at our microphone. He has consented to explain this startling development. General Leclerc wanted...
Écoutez-moi. I've consented to explain the arrest of Toussaint Louverture on the orders of Napoleon Bonaparte. The very first detail we discussed was this matter of free trade, and that gilded African insisted on the continuance of free trade. Am I to administer a colony for the benefit of Napoleon and France, while at the same time I'm making profits for England and America? With free trade in San Domingo, we shall have nothing left for Frenchmen.
And what are the orders of Bonaparte with regard to slavery in San Domingo?
Slavery is henceforth re-established in all the French colonies in San Domingo as well as in Martinique and Guadeloupe.
But General Leclerc, that means war again.
If there is any resistance, I will destroy all the mountain Negroes, men and women, and I will spare only children under 12 years of age. I will destroy half the Negroes of the plains. I will not allow in this colony a single man who has won an epaulet.
And Toussaint, sir, what do you mean to do with him?
My orders are to send him to Napoleon. His ship sailed at once. I return to the Cap.
Thank you, General Leclerc. A short while ago, I saw Toussaint Louverture. He is in chains. I heard him say to the captain of this ship, "In overthrowing me, you have cut down in San Domingo only the trunk of the tree of liberty. It will spring up again by the roots, for they are numerous and deep."
This is John Daly with our interpreter, Captain Francois. We have moved on to the Plan du Nord, an open plain just outside Le Cap, directly in the shadow of the mountains. On this plain, General Henri Christophe is speaking to thousands of men, women, children, soldiers, mountaineers. He's speaking to the citizens of San Domingo. The news of Toussaint's sudden arrest has left them stunned, bewildered. Standing on a sugarcane wagon, stripped to the waist, a bullet hole in his hat, General Christophe is speaking with anger and with passion, and the crowd is tense with silent rage. Captain Francois will translate.
Toussaint could have driven the French into the sea. He could have massacred them. But instead he chose the way of peace, of agreement. He wished to stop the flow of blood. He came with open hand in good faith, and the French, like rats, craving for his life, betrayed him. The French never meant to give us freedom. They prepare our destruction by the capture of Toussaint. Now, brothers, you can see the true face of the French, naked and ugly. The French have no intention to give us freedom. And now, no more parleys. No compromise. Death to the French, the assassins of our liberty. Christophe has taken a French flag. He has ripped out the white from the tricolor. He has cried, "Our flag now is red and black." Countrymen, yes, I call you countrymen. These are our true colors. Christophe has just said, you hear that? Those are wild dogs, wild dogs. Hungry, starved. The French have loosed them upon us. Women and children to the mountains. Men, forward to the attack. Burn, destroy, kill. Remember Toussaint, and stand ready to die for liberty.
The war drums have begun now, and the crowd has burst into song. It's the revolutionary French song, Ça ira, the song with which the citizens of Paris stormed the Bastille in France. The women and children are fleeing to the hills, but the men have seized their muskets, deadly machetes, seized rocks and sticks. They've gotten their hands on anything with which they can kill the unrushing dogs. This day, which dawned so hopefully for freedom by compromise and discussion, has blazed up into a fury of final and bloody revolt. The wild dogs are coming closer. I can see them plainly now. The San Domingans are beginning to boulders.
18-2.
The men who have
Toussaint Louverture is taken, but the final revolution to establish the Republic of Haiti begins.
You have been listening to The Betrayal of Toussaint Louverture, another broadcast in the series You Are There, produced and directed by Robert Louis Cheon. The Betrayal of Toussaint Louverture was written by Joseph Liss and Mr. Cheon. Canada Lee played General Henri Christophe, and George Couloris was General Leclerc. Joseph DeSantis played Captain Francois, Guy Sorel was Toussaint Louverture, and Richard Newton played Lieutenant Bono. Next week,
September 26, 1820, Salem, New Jersey. Colonel Johnson eats the love apple. You are there.
Sundays by now are definitely a stay tuned day on CBS with brilliant dramas such as You Are There and the Helen Hayes Electric Theater, with music from the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and with comedy by Jack Benny and Amos and Andy among the many great programs. Don't forget that Jack Benny is now heard exclusively on CBS and may be heard every Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time over all of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, Jack Benny's new address, the Columbia Broadcasting System.